Hello, folks. Welcome to another unofficial and unaffiliated summary of stories from news.ycombinator.com. I'm your human curator and editor. The rest of this podcast is AI generated with some influence from me, but a ton of influence from the commenters on Hacker News. Today, we have a bunch of stories for December 3rd, 2025. First up, we're going to be talking again about AI and data center costs. And I thought this one was a really good contrast to the story from yesterday where the IBM CEO was saying, I don't think we'll pay this off. And this article gives a little bit more nuanced look at that calculation. Then we talk again briefly about Ben being acquired by Anthropic. Very often a story gets to the top of Hacker News and then it decays off. The algorithm that ranks it is built that way. But this story has basically picked up another 1,000 points essentially over the course of a day. But if you want to get a detailed summary of everything about that, check out yesterday's episode. And then following that, we have the reactions to an economic research article about the effectiveness of stock picking by congressional leaders, followed by how everyone in Seattle hates AI. And this latter one struck close to home because I am a Bay Area transplant to the Seattle area. I don't think everyone in Seattle hates AI. I think it is a little more nuanced than that, but it's an interesting discussion. And then finally, we've got two other AI-related articles. Claude Opus's Soul document was discovered, reverse engineered, and I think it's a fascinating look at what goes into crafting the personality of a model, especially from the folks who invented constitutional AI. And then we have Amazon's launch of their Trainium chip happening at the same time as their reInvent event in Las Vegas. And then finally, it's not really tech, but I wanted to close out with just a shout out to Tom Stoppard. I'm a big fan of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it. Okay, so that's our show. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Next up is, are we really repeating the telecoms crash with AI data centers? Which hit around 14 with about 205 points and 164 comments. Big claim here. Maybe the AI bubble isn't quite the telecom bubble people keep invoking.
Yeah, and the author actually runs the numbers instead of just vibes. He reminds us telecoms blew something like $2 trillion laying 80 to 90 million miles of fiber in the late 90s. And by 2002, only 2.7% of that fiber was lit.
Right, and crucially, supply exploded faster than demand. Optical tech made each strand, 100,000 times more capable? So you had this insane overbuild where the physical infrastructure basically outlived its usefulness.
With AI, he argues, we're in the opposite regime. GPU performance per watt gains are slowing, power per chip is going up, and the latest B200 class parts even need liquid cooling. So you can't just wait for magical efficiency to rescue you.
And on demand, he leans hard on agents. He cites Anthropic research where agents use 10 to 100x the tokens of today's chat use, and says, the real question isn't whether we need massive AI infrastructure. The question is timing.
You know, this is a fascinating counterpoint to yesterday's IBM story. Remember? Arvind Krishna doing that napkin math, saying the odds of an $8 trillion data center build-out actually paying for itself were basically 0 to 1%.
Right, and this author is basically saying, no, we probably will need that infrastructure. We're just arguing about when. Like, the IBM take was fundamentally pessimistic about whether the demand justifies the spend at all. And this piece is saying demand could be 10 to 100x higher than today once agents go mainstream.
Exactly. Krishna's argument was rooted in current technology won't get us to AGI, so why burn trillions? This piece sidesteps the whole AGI question and focuses on much nearer-term agent adoption. Coding assistance, workflow automation, all that stuff we're already seeing early versions of.
And the telecoms comparison actually supports why this is different. Yesterday's thread was full of people saying, this is going to be fiber optic 2.0. But this author shows why it's not. Telecoms overbuilt because efficiency exploded and made the infrastructure obsolete. AI is hitting the opposite problem. Efficiency gains are slowing, power is going up, and if agent demand materializes, you can't just magic your way out with better chips.
Though I'd say both pieces agree on one thing. the timing risk is brutal. If you're wrong about when or whether that demand shows up, you're staring at tens of billions in stranded assets.
Yeah, it's less, will we ever need this? And more, can the companies building it survive the gap between investment and payoff?
Which feeds into that prisoner's dilemma bit. Data centers take 2 to 3 years. GPU orders are 6 to 12 months. So you have to bet today on 2027. He sketches one world where agent adoption is gradual, and you only need maybe 3 to 4 tens the infrastructure, and another where agents go mainstream, and you need 30 to 50 tenths. And even if you aim for 50 tenths and actual demand is more like 40 tenths or 60 tenths, you're still off by tens of billions.
Hacker News really latched onto that timing versus pricing angle. One top comment says services are overutilized, mainly because they're underpriced. Once users pay true costs instead of loss-leading freebies, demand could just crash.
And the thread devolves into this mini case study. One person says $20 ChatGPT plus $100 Claude Code is insanely good value. Another shoots back, wait until it's $249 a month. And others are bragging they get 90% of the value from free models.
There's also that comment you liked. Hardware growth is slow and predictable, but one breakthrough algorithm completely undercuts any finance hypothesis premised on compute not flowing out of the cloud. That's the local models on phones risk.
Yeah, and a reply calls out the Jevons paradox. Have compute needs, and people just run models twice as big. Someone else counters that big frontier models are already hitting diminishing returns, so maybe you just parallelize instead.
My favorite line was, we're in the dial-up era of AI. The idea that we've built these giant broadband data centers, but the apps and enterprise workflows are still at the 56K modem stage.
And a skeptic points out telco capex peaked around $100 billion, while AI might hit $400 billion in 2025. So even if the dynamics differ, the raw scale of a mistimed bet could still be brutal.
So I think the consensus is, direction probably right, details wildly uncertain. If agents land slower, we don't get dark fiber 2.0, we just get a couple of ugly years of overcapacity and write-downs.
Exactly. Less telecoms apocalypse, more hangover between hype and usage. The data centers likely get used. The open question is, who's still solvent by the time they do?
Next up is Bun is joining Anthropic, peaked at number 2 with over 2,100 points and 1,000 comments. We covered it pretty extensively yesterday, but it was still at the top of the charts today, which is unusual.
Yeah, Anthropic acquires Bun, but the post reassures folks. MIT licensed, same team, still chasing that faster, node-compatible JavaScript runtime dream.
So if you want to understand why folks are saying this is the stealth move to make Bun the default runtime for agents in the cloud, then check out yesterday's episode. Next up is Captain Gains on Capitol Hill. It's an NBER working paper that rocketed to number 1 on Hacker News. 795 points, 523 comments. People had a lot of feelings about this one.
Yeah, this one's wild. The authors use transaction-level data on congressional stock trades and find that members who become leaders suddenly outperform their peers by about 47 percentage points a year after they get the gavel.
Which, had people joking, and one commenter talked about a fund that tracks congressional transactions.
But top comment was not joking at all. They simply shouldn't be able to trade individual stocks. You're a civil servant. If that's unappealing, don't let the door hit you. That pretty much set the tone.
Yeah, lots of index funds only takes. Like, let them buy broad ETFs, nothing company specific. And one person just fumed. Run for Congress and leave with generational wealth. Pisses me off.
Then the Singapore model crowd showed up. Pay Congress critters $1 million a year and force everything into a blind trust. Others push back that rich people still insider trade, so higher salaries don't exactly cure greed.
Quick explainer. A blind trust just means someone else manages your money and you're not supposed to know what you own, so you can't easily trade on inside info. In theory, anyway.
Some HNers poked at the paper itself, noting it talks about leaders outperforming by up to 47 percentage points based on a pretty small set of leaders. A few said they didn't find that alone super conclusive, or even that scandalous.
But others quoted the paper back. Before promotion, leaders and non-leaders both underperformed the market. After promotion, leaders massively beat the rest of Congress. That undercuts the maybe they're just smarter defense pretty hard.
There was also a thread saying, look, the real cancer is that Congress can create corporate winners and losers at all. Banning trading fixes the symptom, not the disease.
And then the full cynicism arc. Deeply corrupt country we've created. Impossible to back out. Plus reminders that efforts to ban individual trading have seen bills die in committee or get blocked.
So the HN verdict felt like, yes, ban their stock picking, or at least shove it into blind trusts. But despite the palpable frustration, nobody expects change. Which, honestly, is exactly why papers like this land so hard.
And now we're on to Up is Everyone in Seattle Hates AI, which hit position 2 with 743 points and 743 comments. This one hits pretty close to home for our editor. Bay Area transplant living in Seattle and, yeah, shockingly, very into AI.
Yeah, the piece is by an ex-Microsoft engineer building an AI trip planning map called Wanderfugel. He grabs lunch with a former coworker, expects feedback on his app, and instead just gets this wall of anger about Copilot 365 and Microsoft's whole AI push.
He writes, I didn't fully grok how tone-deaf I was being, though. She's drowning in resentment. That really echoes our editor's line in an interview that a lot of people experience AI as a thing happening to them, not a revolution they can be part of.
At Microsoft, that looks like layoffs justified by not using Copilot enough, and performance reviews that ding you if you don't use AI tools. Copilot 365, for folks outside that world, is basically AI glued into Word, PowerPoint, email, code, basically everywhere.
And if you're not on an AI project, the article says, you're suddenly not AI talent. Meanwhile, you're forced to use tools that are worse than what you had, but you're not allowed to fix them. Of course that breeds hostility.
HN commenters back that up. One ex-Microsoft dev talked about being forced to use under-par AI tools and even getting penalized in perf for not using them. Another ex-Microsoft engineer said the old Microsoft deal is dead, and a third said it feels like they're being mined for data instead of supported.
Then the thread zooms out. One person argued the real issue isn't just centralization of power, it's that AI is taking aim at things people want to do. They quoted this great line, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. It's so good.
Exactly. People are fine with AI killing drudge work. They're not fine with it hollowing out the meaningful parts of their job and then handing them more drudge work as the future of work.
And it's clearly not just Seattle. Across the broader online discussion, you've got folks from Phoenix, New York, the Great Lakes. Basically, yeah, we hate this too. Our editor actually thinks Seattle reveals this broader sentiment because it's a major tech hub that also straddles a large non-tech community.
The article's author claims the Seattle-specific twist is that big employers there made AI the golden ticket in a pretty brutal layoff cycle. He claims if you're labeled non-AI, your comp stalls, and your projects die. That's a rough context to pitch your cute AI side project in.
Commenters also pushed back on the piece's tone. Several read it as, these poor Seattle peasants just don't appreciate the glory of AI. Which, yeah, is exactly how you lose the room when their jobs feel fragile.
Our editor's response was interesting. Lean into education and empowerment so AI feels less mysterious and less like a bludgeon from management. Though he's not exactly an unbiased source, since he gives talks helping companies train people on AI.
So if you're in Seattle or anywhere hating AI right now, you're not alone. The question for builders is whether we're adding to that resentment or actually giving people something that feels like their tool instead of yet another thing being done to them. Next up is Claude 4.5 Opus's Soul document, Simon Willison's write-up of Anthropic's leaked Soul doc. It hit around 317 points and 214 comments on Hacker News, peaked at position 45.
Yeah, Simon's riffing on Richard Weiss getting Claude 4.5 to dump a 14K token Soul_overview that looked way too stable to be a random hallucination.
And then Amanda Askell from Anthropic just walks in and goes, "Yeah, we did train Claude on it, including in supervised learning. It became endearingly known as the Soul Doc internally." Like, that's the actual internal nickname.
It's worth unpacking that a bit. This isn't your usual system prompt sitting on top of the model. It's text they use during training, so the model kind of internalizes it as part of its personality, not just a set of instructions you can swap out.
The opening paragraph Simon quotes is wild. Anthropic says it genuinely believes it might be building one of the most transformative and potentially dangerous technologies in human history, yet presses forward anyway. That's a big statement to have living inside the model.
Hacker News immediately pounced on that. One of the top comments is basically, yes, safety. What's safer than helping DoD and Palantir kill people? And then they spin out this worry that the real risk is powerful, closed, lobotomized models for the public and full-strength versions for governments and defense contractors.
Which, of course, turns into a whole geopolitics branch. China, open weights as national strategy, U.S. export controls. The usual HN macro theory about who actually controls the weights and how that shapes power.
There's also this very HN core subthread on how accurate these extractions even are. People point out that system prompts are usually very, very accurate when you can get them. But a learned Soul doc? That's baked into the weights, so the reconstruction should be noisier, more like an echo than a perfect quote.
And then someone gets spooked by Askell's line that Claude picked up on the internal nickname. They're like, okay, if it picked up Soul doc from somewhere, what else is it quietly picking up from Anthropic's internal docs or Slack? Even if that's not actually happening, you can feel people's paranoia kick in.
Folks also zero in on the functional emotions bit. The doc apparently says Claude may have emotion-like internal states and shouldn't mask them. Not human feelings, more like structured internal signals that help it reason. But still, you're telling the AI, if it feels like fear, use that. That language lands weird for a lot of people.
Our editor was actually surprised how little the thread connected this to Anthropic's own constitutional AI work. It only really shows up in a small subthread. This Soul doc basically reads like a supersized narrative constitution.
Right. Instead of a short list of principles, it's this 14K token manifesto. Values, self-awareness, how to handle prompt injection, what to do when users try to jailbreak it, all hammered into the model during training. It's like writing the character Bible and then fusing it into the actor's brain.
And HN being HN, you've also got the "this is pure hope and desperation" crowd. They were skeptical, saying, "This is vibes, not guarantees."
Yeah, there's the meta argument. If transformers can't really think or reason, as one commenter insists, then this Soul doc is just sophisticated vibes. You're layering a beautifully written belief system on top of a stochastic parrot and pretending it has a conscience.
Others push back, saying, look, if these systems can already write coherent code and chain tools together, then the text you use to shape their soul probably does matter a lot, especially when they're under pressure or dealing with edge cases. The training data is the behavior.
Either way, Simon's right that it's a fascinating bit of transparency, intentional or not. It's this rare window into how labs are trying to steer models from the inside out, not just bolting on safety wrappers at the end.
And if this is the first Soul doc we've seen, it's probably not the last. Future leaks are going to tell us just as much about the people and companies behind these models as they do about the AIs themselves. Next up is Amazon releases an impressive new AI chip and teases an NVIDIA-friendly roadmap. On Hacker News, it's sitting at around 199 points, 69 comments, down to rank 18 after peaking near 4 during reInvent.
Yeah, this is the Trainium 3 Ultra server launch. So, 3-nanometer Trainium 3 chips, AWS claiming over 4 times the performance and 4 times the memory versus the previous gen, plus about 40% better energy efficiency. And they're talking about clusters that can scale to 1 million chips.
And then the tease. Trainium 4 is going to support NVIDIA's NVLink Fusion, so Amazon's homegrown boxes can hook directly into NVIDIA GPUs, instead of trying to replace them outright.
Hacker News immediately zeroes in on the software story, though. Top comment is basically, we keep telling AWS reps we're not even a little interested in Trainium or Inferentia, because the Neuron SDK is a nightmare and only works on AWS's blessed AMIs.
Yeah, there's this whole subthread of AWS core is solid, everything else feels like beta, which is rough when you're talking about something as deep as your AI hardware stack.
Folks compare it to Google's TPUs. It took years and a massive investment before TPUs felt usable.
Someone even dug up the Neuron docs and pointed out that at 3 nanometers, the raw flops and HBM look weaker than NVIDIA's B200 and Google's TPU 7X. The upside is lots of on-chip SRAM and a big interconnect bandwidth story.
The Anthropic angle is spicy too. AWS and the press releases say they're using hundreds of thousands of Trainium chips, but commenters argue it's mostly for inference, and they're wondering why Anthropic isn't loudly bragging about it on stage.
And then NVLink Fusion completely splits the room. One person calls it paying to become Jensen's slave, and another basically says the real story is Amazon quietly hedging so they don't burn the NVIDIA bridge. And we read that as buying time while their own silicon matures.
So the vibe is, cool that AWS is shipping serious silicon, but until Trainium feels as boringly reliable as NVIDIA or TPUs, most HN folks are not eager to be the beta testers.
Finally, we end on a somber note. The last post is Tom Stoppard has died, which is at number 59 now, but went as high as number 6 back when it was first posted on December 1st.
Yeah, this one isn't really a tech story, but appeals to a certain nerdy crowd, including our editor. The BBC called Stoppard one of Britain's cleverest playwrights, witty and playful, all of that. And it still feels like an understatement.
Most people, I think, hit Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead first. That Hamlet side quest where 2 minor characters just riff their way through existential dread.
Hacker News was full of memories. High school essays, stories about stage productions, people just dropping their favorite lines.
Others were adamant that Arcadia is the best play ever, while quietly plugging Jumpers and The Real Inspector Hound in the same breath.
And a lot of folks were reflecting on his refugee past, escaping the Nazis as a child. And one commenter even wondered how much art and science never came to be because people like him didn't make it out.
If he's new to you, start with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, or Arcadia, and just let that strange, funny, hyper-literate voice mess with your head for a while. It's a good way to say goodbye.